Blog Talk Radio.
Hello out there everywhere in the world. Welcome to another episode, the third episode, in fact, second official episode of Infinite Universe Radio. Tonight I'm joined by a very interesting guest and a good friend of mine, and excuse me a minute, I'm having minor issues with a mic that keeps wanting to fall down and hit me in the face. In any case, a friend of mine with some very interesting reviews on subjects we don't often hear much about, and who is also quite well known on YouTube, and hopefully I'll be able to give him an opportunity to advertise his own channel on here, and I would encourage everybody to check it out. Anyway, I'm going to bring in my guest and probably give him most of the floor. My friend, commonly known on the internet, on YouTube, as Enlightenment to all.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, how are you this evening?
I'm doing very well. I'm prepared to hopefully enlighten a few minds and get some people thinking outside the box today.
Okay, well, that's what this show is all about. So, where tonight are you going to take us?
Well, we're going to delve into the metaphysics and all aspects of it. This includes a bit of nanoscience, a bit of New Age technology, a little bit of conspiracy and suppression, and I have a lot to cover, so whenever you're ready, miss, I will get to it.
All right. Okay. Sure.
Okay, I shall begin with my introduction. My name is Matthew Garcia, a.k.a. Enlightenment to all. My interests include seeking truth, metaphysics, alternate energy, vortex mathematics, and knowledge in general. Today I hope to share some of the latest technology and metaphysics. The world is changing quickly before our very eyes. Technology that has long been suppressed is finally making it to the mainstream, and this will bring a whole new wave of energy and transportation. There is a whole new world that awaits those who have open minds and are eager to learn of things that are not taught in public schools or society as a whole. First of all, let's discuss the definition of metaphysics itself. Metaphysics is a branch of philosophy concerned with explaining the fundamental nature of being and the world. Although the term is not easily defined, traditionally, metaphysics attempts to answer two basic questions in the broadcast of possible terms of what is there and what is it like. So, in other words, metaphysics attempts to explain that which is not easily explained in human terms or human concept and terminology. Okay, so let's begin. A good place to start with the aspect of metaphysics is probably vortex mathematics. This is a type of mathematics that is not taught in public schools. It's known by many in the esoteric community as the map of God. When I first learned of this, I was fascinated by it right away, as I enjoy mathematics, and this was a new concept to me. A man by the name of Marco Rodin has designed a coil, which is known as a toroidal coil or Rodin coil. This coil is created with your standard circular ring and copper wires. However, it is the angles of the woven wires that make it unique. There is no resistance at all. The energy flows through the coil perfectly. Words cannot really explain what these coils are capable of. You must see it to really take in what it can do and what it has the potential to offer this world. YouTube is a pretty good source for demonstrations of this technology. And Marco Rodin gives a tutorial on the vortex-based mathematics system. I highly recommend it for any inquisitive minds out there. I think it serves as a perfect introduction into metaphysics itself. And as I said, it really blew my mind that, they don't teach this in public schools. It's completely changed my perceptions of mathematics and geometry altogether. So again, I highly recommend it to anyone.
Okay. I'm sure I've seen videos of the rodent coil, but I can't remember offhand what it is. I'll look it up. That sounds interesting.
What you want to picture is, just picture like a ring that's hollow in the center. It's a 3D ring, spherical. And what you're going to do is, all these copper wires are woven around this ring in a vortex fashion. It's all about angles and measurements and that. And with the correct angle and proportion, when you charge this coil and place a spherical magnet in the center of it, this magnet will start to produce more energy than it's using. And you'll also find that the magnet will even float. If you lift up the ring, the magnet will float in the center of the coil. This is known as zero-point energy.
Okay. So what can you do with this 0-point energy?
Well, one of the many fascinating aspects of it include anti-gravity tech, as it can float, and there have been some theories that state that even time travel is possible with these coils.
Oh, wow.
If you were to take 3 of these coils and place them on top of one another vertically with correct spacing, of course, and a magnet in the center, and say you'd have the upper and the lower coil rotate in a clockwise manner, and the center coil rotate in a counterclockwise manner, there seems to be some theories that suggest that this can bend space and time itself. Now, I've yet to confirm it myself. I'm currently in the process of building my own coil. Funding has been pretty scarce. I'm scraping up what I can to get it built. But once I have it built, I plan on making videos and tutorials and showing everybody what I can find. And again, it's all theories, and I must provide a disclaimer to everybody right now. Please use your own discernment. It's only what resonates with you that matters.
Okay. I agree. I mean, not everything will resonate with everybody at any certain point in time. Although that can also change too.
Yes, it's all a matter of perception. In my studies, I've come to learn that to understand, one must be able to understand. You must have an open mind, and you must be at a certain level of consciousness to be able to even fathom some of the technology that's making it mainstream now.
I just find it so fascinating that we're hearing more of this, if we're not in the mainstream, then at least in, I suppose you would call it YouTube underground media. And we are hearing more of all this sort of subject and other metaphysics, which I think is simply amazing.
Yes, and, the reason it's been suppressed is pretty basic, really, when you think about it. It's the same reason that most of the world still depends on fossil fuels for our energy needs. It's greed. I mean, think about if this tech went mainstream about the time it was being researched, which was in, I believe, the 30s, maybe even earlier. The big oil and gas industries would have gone bankrupt, and they knew this, and therefore they bought out the patents that were placed for this technology by gentlemen like Nikola Tesla and there was another gentleman, I believe his name is Ed Leedskalnin. He created the coral castle phenomena.
Okay, I don't think I've heard of it or of him.
I'll be going into them shortly.
Okay.
Okay, so let's continue with suppression here.
Okay.
If everybody knew the technology that's available right now, and I mean, it's really mind-blowing what they're covering up, and it's just now coming out finally to the mainstream, such as 0 point or other forms of alternative energy. You can really build these devices on your own for a relatively cheap amount. I've seen people that are powering their homes via magnetic motors and these coils now, and they have no need to pay for utility anymore. And I feel that this is what is needed right now in this world. People need to become educated on how to free their minds and themselves from society as a whole and create the life that they want to live.
Mhm. Yeah, and I see, like, I agree even too. It's all about money and greed. And the sad thing about one life on Earth is that money is a power, and power where is everything.
Yeah, sadly, society has become oriented toward greed and control and all that, but there are an ever-growing number of people that are awakening, and I couldn't be happier about it. Each day I see more signs of change. I've noticed a lot of the CEOs of a lot of the world-controlled banks have been resigning recently, and I think this is a great sign of people waking up and realizing that they've been manipulated and lied to for so many years.
Oh yes, I noticed too. I'm hearing more and more, and it's seeming that more and more of us people are just getting sick of it. Sick
yes,
of the
I agree.
greed and the money and the whole system.
And that's what this new wave of technology is going to show people, that money is really going to become a thing of the past. I often wonder, how come more people don't realize that it's a failed concept? The global banks are crashing now, and the debt cannot be sustained. From day one, it's been about debt. There is no money, there is no credit, there's only debt. Except for the top 1%, of course.
Oh, yes. There's always, and I've always heard it said that we do have about 1% ruling about 99% of the earth. I'm not really sure how they could, but I believe it's somehow happening. And it really is the few ruling the many. Hence the need, I suppose, for the control and the suppression, the fear.
Yes, I agree, and that's why I try to do my part and try and change this world, make a stand. I mean, everybody wants to live happy. Everybody wants abundance. Everybody wants joy, and I just think it's pretty absurd that from day one, when you're born on this planet, the odds are against you.
Oh yes, but it's about finding, I believe, our own power too. And I suppose in a way, you say that's what you're doing in a way with these coils and with the alternate energy. We're looking for your own way. Nice.
There's so many exciting aspects of this technology. It's really something. One of the lesser known capabilities is the ability to alter electrons in matter. And most people are now becoming aware of the grid that surrounds this planet. And if you were to build a machine such as a magnetic motor with the proper blueprint and the right location on the planet where the magnetic lines intersect, you could in fact alter the atomic structure of matter. And a good example of this is Edward Leeds-Skalnin and his device used to create the Coral Castle. He was able to move gigantic stones alone with seemingly no heavy equipment in a very short period of time. He only did his work at night as to not arouse attention of what he was doing, because I honestly don't think that people would be quiet about a bunch of huge stones floating in the air.
No, certainly not.
But basically his device was able to alter the weight of these stones so he could in essence de-electronize them, making them lighter in weight, and then recharge them back to their original weight. And for decades this baffled people how he did it. And it's just now coming to the light that he in fact was using magnetic manipulation to move these giant stones.
Okay, as soon as you mentioned the stones and the way of moving them, I right away thought mentally of the ancient pyramid builders. And I wonder if maybe
they were using a similar technology. I believe it was called an Etheron generator. But many people still wonder how were the pyramids built, and it's just now that science is finally becoming able to explain it to the masses.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. But that, of course, if we went into it, would take us obviously only on an off-topic tangent, I suppose.
Yes, I often feel that the Egyptians had much advanced technology that, of course, was suppressed, and I'm sure that others will agree, and I'm sure that many are skeptical as well. But, however, I think a lot of these skeptics will become certified believers once the veil is lifted and people see that truth is indeed stranger than fiction itself.
Oh, yes. As I and a lot of others are starting to find out, it's a strange world, and I believe a much bigger world than we we're told. And this certainly, you're right, isn't something that we normally learn in a classroom or any of that.
Yes, I found in order to become aware of this knowledge, you have to pretty much become an isolated individual, and I'll go into that more later. But it's something that you must seek. It's not something that's going to be handed to you or given to you. You have to be passionate about it, and you have to want to learn of it.
Oh, yes. And I suppose the old proverb here works when the student is ready, the teacher shall show up, or the info, or the video or the book.
Yes, that is an excellent adage, and I believe it applies to nearly all aspects of life. So anyway, let's move on to some more metaphysical technology here. Okay. I'd like to discuss some aspects of shape memory alloys. Now, these are alloys that have mutable traits. Temperature can alter the characteristics of matter, and by heating or freezing, these alloys can change shape and atomic structure. Relatively a new concept in most of rudimentary science, but it reveals entirely new concepts of how to use these kind of alloys. And one of the more fascinating aspects of this is in the field of quantum locked levitation by superconduction. By freezing a superconductor over a magnetic rail, you can enable a quantum lock of it. So think of a magnetic rail with a superconductor floating above it via reverse magnetic polarity. And now by freezing this superconductor to a sub-zero temperature, it becomes locked in 3 dimensions of space. And what that means basically is that it will never fall off the track, even if there are no guards around the track to hold it in place. And it can even rotate on its axis at angles and never stray from its lock in space. Really one of the more fascinating aspects of these shape memory alloys.
Okay.
And I know it sounds pretty confusing. This is another one you can look and see for yourself on YouTube. Just look for quantum levitation. It'll come right up. But, you know, when people first see this, they're just shocked. They're like, wow, is this really happening?
Yeah. I can imagine it would be something thing to see. That's for sure.
And we have another fascinating aspect that can be used in the field of security. Say like, those charge clearance cards that they use in the buildings. You hold it up to next to the door and it beeps and it unlocks. Mm-hmm. Okay, well think about what the shape memory alloys could do for this card. Now most people would never think that the card could in fact be 3 different cards. And a good example of this can be found of all places in a video game. In Hideo Kojima's Metal Gear Solid, there is a card key that alters its shape via temperature. And the gentleman in the story who has to input this card key into the computer he must first heat and then freeze and then keep the card room at temperature. Keep the card at room temperature. So in essence, one piece of identification or security can be altered by simply the temperature alone.
Okay.
And of course, I'm sure that the government is using this already. Anything that becomes mainstream, the government is already 30 or 40 years ahead of it technology-wise. They only let out what they want us to know. So.
Oh yes, and I've heard it said that they are, in a way, sort of hinting at, or someone is hinting at this hidden info in video games and movies, but that's a whole other issue. It's just sort of relevant because you mentioned the video game.
Yes, it's what I like to call pre-programming. If you look for, lots of coincidences out there, such as symbolism in Hollywood. I've trained myself now, when I'm watching television, the little television I actually watch anymore, I don't really pay attention to what's going on directly. I kind of look in the background. I look for other things that most other people don't notice. And when you start to do this, you start to put pieces of the puzzle together, and it really fascinates everybody who learns of this, how everything is indeed connected and everything is indeed working in perfect harmony with the universe.
Yeah, well, as they say, and I believe, all the info is out there. I once heard somebody say this. I can't remember who, but oh well. Everything that we'll ever have is already out there. You just have to reach up and grab it.
Yes, indeed, that's very true. There is nothing that's new. It's only being rediscovered.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on now.
Okay.
An increasingly popular aspect is in the field of nanoscience. And nano is simply the scale of particles and atoms below that of the micro. Some will be shocked to learn that nanites, which are in fact nanoscale robots, dwell within most all of our bodies right now. And that what many people call chemtrails are in fact nanites, which fall to the ground and it can embed in your skin. They have a wide variety of uses. Chemtrailing enables things such as cloud seeding and weather modification. And this is going to be a sensitive subject with many. But given my studies, I can honestly tell you that cloud seeding and weather modification has been going on for much longer than anybody realizes.
Okay.
And then there are other aspects of nanoscience as well. On the human level, it seems to be a much more sinister agenda for those that are conducting these experiments with these nanites. It's really quite horrific what can be done with them. I've seen articles and tales. The artificial disease known as Morgellons or Legionnaire's disease is in fact the result of nanites. Nanoscale fibers can embed in your body and grow. And with a simple command, these fibers can alter your body and senses. I've even heard cases of these fibers being used to terminate people in dire cases. I heard of a story of a lady one time who was strangled to death by Morgellons fibers that had grown in her neck and then constricted. And of course that would make it appear as if she was strangled to death by a person.
Yeah.
The scientific nanocorp known as CNIDE, CENIDE, is one of the leading nanoscience firms in the world. And I have seen images of this company logo on the human hair before. And when you think about things like that, it's kind of creepy,
Yeah, I've heard a bit about this disease, as they call it. I've never really researched it because, to be honest, I don't really want to know. It's a freaky thing, and actually, I don't know about that whole thing. I'm wanting to, really, but I've often heard about the relationship between it and the chemtrails. it seems it's becoming more of a common knowledge than ever now.
Yes, with more and more people becoming afflicted by this artificial disease, it's coming more and more into society and the light now, especially in Canada, I've noticed. In Canada, a lot of the alternative media is really getting on point now and revealing to people what's really happening in this world. And, you know, I'm glad about it. I just hope that, you know, the Harper government doesn't clamp down on those people.
Yeah.
I don't really trust Mr. Harper myself, however. Again, that's just a total different aspect of politics, and I really don't care to get into politics today.
No. If there's anything that intends to wind everybody up, it's a good show on politics.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear about that. So let's move on to some more aspects of nanoscience. It's not all secrets and wickedness. There are some promising aspects of it as well. Nanites can also be used to help people cure diseases and, you know, aid in bodily functions that have gone awry over time, such as kidney disease. And in some extreme cases, I've even heard that it's able to cure terminal illnesses like cancer or something to that extent. Now, this is my own opinion, but I think that who or whatever is calling the shots in this world is seeking to alter nature itself to conform to its will, creating pretty much a virtual world. And, of course, this falls right in line with the whole NWO and Illuminati conspiracy. But that's another subject entirely, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another big one, too, that's a whole matter all in themselves. I do like the idea, though, of a positive use for this. I've never heard of anything positive about it. So,
yes, there are positive aspects to it. And right now, in most medical establishments, you'll only find microscience and microtechnologies. However, in some of the more advanced universities and hospitals, they're using nanotech now. And it's about 100 times more efficient than what microtech can do. I've seen a study of lung therapy once, and the nanites that were used outperformed microbes by almost 120%, I believe. So it can be used to help humanity. But again, society is mostly about control and suppression and etc.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, as we've all heard, anything in the wrong hands, and it all goes downhill. However, put it in the right hands, and yeah, I believe there are two sides to almost every story.
Indeed, yes. Okay, let's see what else we can get into here. Further aspects of metaphysics include dimensional and density perception. Most of the New Age community is well aware of dimensional and density theory. I've done extensive studies into this subject, and I will share what I have learned with you. The concept of dimension and density relates to various levels of consciousness for the most part. One's esoteric and exoteric development can correspond to their level of dimension/density and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about this, you have to go way back, like when the concept of first thought and perception began with mankind itself. Around the time of the first metaphor, I suppose, is when we really started to be given consciousness. And that's also when science itself began, for at least humanity anyway, as well as time. Because time is a measurement, as are nearly all concepts and thoughts. At some point in the history of man, we went from pre-Adamic man to Adamic man. And we were bestowed with consciousness, the ability to think, to perceive, and to measure with our own unique perspective. Prior to this, man was akin to think like most animals. We simply sought to survive and really did not have any kind of consciousness of our own. Now, most theories state that extraterrestrials interfered with man's natural state and genetically altered us to have consciousness. And in essence, of course, man saw these beings as gods. And bestowed with this amazing new ability to think for oneself, we were easily convinced to do their will.
Oh, yes. I've heard much about this in the past, and I could see how that could have easily happened.
Yes, there's many theories. You know, there's all the tablets from the Sumerians and the Babylonians, and they all state that mankind basically became a slave race. We were given the ability to think on our own, and it was such a wonderful and powerful thing that we were given that, of course, we would naturally bend to these higher beings.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another fascinating subject in and of itself, the alternate theories of the origin of man.
Yes, and the more I delve into it, the more I'm fascinated by it. And, you know, thoughts are very powerful and influential. If you're raised in a certain way, you're not going to see anything beyond it. And in this world, we are bred to society's demands. We work most of our lives for that almighty money and often end up in debt with no hope of ever giving it out. And this is the concept of money that the, quote, gods, unquote, brought to us. And we naturally accepted it, basking in the glory of our newfound consciousness. However, by accepting it, we also openly accepted slavery, and I think that this was their plan from day one. Money is unlimited. You can print it forever. And in my opinion, it's powerful, quote, magic, unquote. People give their thoughts to it. They give their energy to it. They give their whole lives to it. Myself, I've never liked the concept of money, and I've made it one of my life goals to see it abolished forever. I'm not going to give my life away for a piece of paper, and I honestly don't think anyone else should have to either.
Oh, no. I suppose in a perfect world, we would never have to. But I think, though, without money, the world would be a little bit, confused. I mean, imagine trying to pay at the store with, say, a handful of beans or a couple of alive chickens, or it could have worked, and I could see how it still could, though.
Yes, what it's going to take is there must first be an interim period where man can gain abundance and become educated on ways to be away from money and exist in a community with family where everyone helps one another. Because, I mean, we've been on money for so long, it's not just going to go away right away. We have to be weaned off of it. And in my perception, what I honestly think the government should do right now is to wipe the national debt clean and have a default. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be against that, but the debt there's no recovering from it now. It's gone too far. It's a festering black hole of no return.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
The only moral and ethical solution to erase the debt and to have people, understand that, yes, we made a mistake, the mistake was money, is to be away with it and educate people on how to be done with it forever.
Although I would think that, given the power structure of the Earth as we know it, and they're not just gonna, say, okay, I'm gonna buy your money and row it away. They're gonna hold on until there's nothing to hold on to, which is sad and concerning to me, really.
Yes, it's going to be a long and hard process, but it's something that must be done for the greater good, I believe. Okay, so let's get back into dimension and density theory.
Okay.
Let's discuss the various levels of dimension and density. This is from my own studies, of course, and again, discernment is for yourselves. So from what I've learned, it begins in the first dimension, which is the nano/cellular level. It is the dimension in which all matter exists and interacts with space and the grand scheme of the omniverse itself. Some call it the Higgs boson, or the God particle, that many are familiar with.
Oh, neat.
And and at this level, light is projected, which leads to the second dimension. Keep in mind, of course, now that dimension and density are different concepts. Dimension is only a spatial reference, that which one dwells in. Density is the actual sentient consciousness of self, in which density one resides in. Okay, moving on to the second dimension. The second dimension in my studies is the light that is projected by the first dimension. Shadows and other two-dimensional objects are the result. Now, some will claim that animals and plant life are of the second density but dwell in the third dimension. This would make sense to me, as plants and animals do not seem to have the amount of sentient consciousness that man does, but they still exist in the third dimension. And of course, moving on to the third dimension, that's where most of society is dwelling right now, with third density consciousness, of course. However, this is rapidly changing as secrets of the earth and time are being revealed now en masse. 3D is the depth of 2D, an added dimension of space. You can think of it like a z-axis, giving your y and x-axis further depth and shape.
Oh yeah, I can see the image in my head.
Okay, now it's going to get interesting, because now we're going to move from the third dimension to the fourth dimension. And this is a very intriguing aspect of dimensional and density analysis, given this current time. So beyond 3D is 4D, which in my study show is a realm of secrecy and intrigue. The fourth dimension is that which is within. So you would think of looking at a three-dimensional cube. So when you're looking at it with a third-dimensional consciousness, you cannot see that there is another cube that's inside of this cube. And that's why so many in the world now cannot see what is really happening, because they have only third-dimensional consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this is the realm where those who control this world are, I believe, operating on 4D consciousness, easily controlling the unaware masses with money, music, television, and everyday matrix lifestyles. The jump from 3D to 4D consciousness is a big one, and very few ever reach this level as they are mired in the matrix. To obtain this level, one must take the road less traveled, choosing to work on one's self-development through study and solitude rather than work for the matrix and society itself. As such, 4D entities will do everything in their power to keep man in 3D thinking. And in my discernment, there are two types of fourth-dimensional entities. There are those who control, which are referred to as STS beings, or service-to-self beings. These are cruel, greedy, and serve only their collective consciousness. These entities see nothing beyond what is their collective consciousness. They feed off of emotion and hardship and the suffering of mankind. And this is made clearly evident by war, by strife, by plague, all that stuff. This is what they feed off of.
Okay. And
then we have the other type of fourth dimensional entity is known as STO, or service to others. This is the polar opposite of the STS being. These entities are very kind, loving, and truth-seeking individuals. They only seek to help others and share their knowledge and wisdom. Fourth dimension is time itself. And when one realizes that there is no time, there is only the measurement of it, and that all time is indeed synchronous, thus this opens the door to time travel itself. And I believe that most of fourth dimensional entities are indeed time travelers. And in this society, fourth dimensional service to other beings are few and far between. They're often targeted individuals. They possess knowledge that can free the minds of mankind from 3D consciousness, and therefore they're a big threat to the other STS beings that feed off of submission to slavery. Examples of some of the greatest fourth dimensional STO beings that I believe to exist are John Kennedy, Jesus Christ, Martin Luther King, and other such people who sought to free the minds of men. Most fourth-dimensional beings have galactic consciousness and see beyond life as most know it on this planet. And I'll provide a description from the Cassiopean's material. This is where I study a lot of my esoteric means. Quote, "We ask you to consider as we speak that there are not words for positively describing the fourth density. We can only explain what is not and approximate what is. Beyond fourth density, our ability grows more limited until we become without words. That which fourth density is not. It is not of words unless chosen. It is not of heavy chemical vehicles for body complex activities. It is not of disharmony with himself. It is not of disharmony within peoples. It is not within limits of possibility to cause disharmony in any way. Now, this is kind of a contradiction, as there are fourth-dimensional STS beings, as I said, that cause much disharmony. So again, you must use your discernment to find your own perception.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing I was struck by in your list of the positive 4D beings was that these all seem to be people, Martin Luther, JFK, who were persecuted and or killed for their beliefs, which is a matter of concern for Earth, if you're right.
Yes, they're beings. They possess knowledge, as I said, that can fix the minds of men, and that's the biggest threat to those that control, is the idea that an individual cannot be controlled by anyone other than himself. And that's the greatest power anyone can ever realize, is their own power.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And actually, if you don't mind, on the subject of power, I'd like to share something, because this reminded me of it. If I may, for just a second here.
Of course.
I remember hearing sort of an idea that just popped into my head, as will often happen with people, and I believe there's more to it than many would think. But the sudden insight that popped into my head just a few weeks ago, which is why I'm fascinated here by the timing, was simply a very forceful command of, you must find your power and learn your power. So hearing you say that, I was kind of shocked over it. It's amazing.
Yes, for everyone who is becoming aware of what's happening, there is synchronicity going on everywhere. I find synchronicities in my life every day now.
Yeah, I notice it more and more often myself.
Yes, and I credit that to the shift quote that's going on. And of course, this is going to relate to the fifth dimension. A lot of the New Age community speaks of the fifth dimension, and that's where I'll end my discussion of dimensional and density concepts, as beyond the fifth dimension, there is very little information to be found. So, there's a lot of speculation on the fifth dimension, and most of the New Age community agrees that this is where the planet is going to end up post-2012. In my studies of the fifth dimension, it cannot be reached without physical death. So I often wonder, when people say they want the fifth dimensional Earth, what they really know they're asking for. I'll provide some more material from the Cassiopeans on the fifth dimension here. 5D is a non-physical state of being where entities that incarnate in first and fourth densities exist between incarnations. The first non-physical density, or the density of wisdom, the first where thought can create reality without being bounded by material restrictions. Incarnation into a density which corresponds to a soul's general level of development is a necessary means for progress. Only incarnation may teach certain indispensable lessons. The experience as consisting of equal parts of space-time and time-space. Space-time corresponds to incarnate life with motion in space and no control over the flow of time. Time-space corresponds to between lives contemplation with free motion in time but no means of affecting space. So at least for third density souls. So in essence, time for incarnate beings flows forward, and the time for beings in between lives flows in the opposite direction. The concept of spirit as guiding the present from the future, whereas matter reaches for future from the past. Each moment of consciousness is thus a meeting of these two streams. A sort of mirroring of the past life occurs in the astral world, where one has the tendency to see self from the outside, through the eyes of all one has interacted with.
Okay. See, I have trouble, as I'm sure most people do, just comprehending fourth and fifth, because I'm in the third. Like I can't imagine, how to see into the fifth or the fourth. Although, I suppose we're learning.
It's all about process and development. We all develop at our own pace, and when we are all able to comprehend, then we will comprehend, and that's just part of life. To do, one must be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move into some concepts of time now. Time itself, as I stated earlier, is merely a measurement, of course, a tool for control. All time is synchronous. It's happening right now. It's only our limited perception that keeps us locked in this time that we perceive as with our calendars. And recently I've begun to use two different calendars. The Gregorian calendar, which of course we're brought up to acknowledge, and I've also come to find the 13-moon calendar. And I must say that my life has been a lot more interesting since I began to use the 13-moon calendar. And if you're looking to learn more of it, you can check out, just check it out online. Look up 13-moon calendar, find tutorials. It can get quite complex, and many will be unable to comprehend it. But as I said, that's the nature of things. To do, one must be able to do. And we all develop at our own pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm going to look it up some time when I have a chance, and let's see. It sounds interesting.
It's highly recommended.
Okay.
Moving on. When you're thinking of the concept of time, the concept of age arises. If you train your mind to age slower, then you will, by proper diet and just taking care of your body. And this 13-moon calendar, I believe, adds a new perception of time beyond the Gregorian calendar. I think it unlocks new paths to living longer and happier. And I honestly feel that the Gregorian calendar is a tool of control, conforming mankind to abide by its dates and hours. It's known as the frequency of 1260, which means 12 months / 12 hours and 60 minutes to each hour. Now, the 13-moon calendar is a frequency of 1320, in which there are 13 months and 20 days in each month between moon phases. To me, it seems a more natural concept of time that adheres to the sun and moon phases. Hours do not exist in this calendar, merely days and months. Thus, one can conceive that those living under this calendar will live longer lifespans. It's focused more upon the zodiacal clock, and I see more and more people are using it and have a big turnaround in their lives now. And again, I highly recommend it to those who are mired in the matrix and everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 28 days. I think that would make the average a month. I mean, the same as a moon cycle.
Yes, it's almost the same perception of time. It's just there's 13 months and there's 20 days. There's just a slight difference. But I honestly feel that it is more oriented toward nature, toward life as it was before there was control and suppression. And while we're referencing the zodiac here, I'd like to bring up an interesting concept of the 13th zodiac sign that's now surfacing.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, more and more people are becoming aware of this now. And I first came across it last year on CBS News, of all places. Now, it's mainstream media, so of course I'm wary of it. And they were speaking of a 13th sign of the zodiac. Now, this was shortly after what I believe was a polar shift that occurred on the 1st of 2011. That's when all the bird and fish deaths were reported. And all these birds and fish had a similar trait in that they had a gland in their head that was affected by magnetism. And by a polar shift, I feel that's why there were so many bird and fish deaths. So, tying into that is the 13th sign of the zodiac. Now, the story claims that the stars have changed, and that would fall perfectly in line with the polar shift. And I don't know about everyone else, but in my location, I've noticed that the stars are indeed different from what I've known them to be as years I've been growing up. The 13th sign is called Ophiuchus, and it's also known as the serpent bearer. The image is a man entangled with two serpents, and this was used during Babylonian times. Now, if you think on the concept for a moment, the last big polar shift was said to be around the time of Babylon. So it would make sense that when the axis of the Earth shift and the stars change, that the 13th sign of the zodiac would reappear once again. And also, when you think of a man and two serpents, the first thing that comes to my mind is the caduceus symbol. And that's a big hint right there.
I believe it is the hint I got from it was the original symbol for human DNA. Am I correct?
Yes, that's a very good theory you have there. And it does make perfect sense to me as well. And it falls right in line with how the planets really orbit. You know, NASA is still trying to push this two-dimensional orbital diagram of the planets. That's not how space works. The sun is moving itself, and the planets are following the sun in a spiral motion, just like DNA.
Oh, neat.
Now back to this new sign. Seeing as it's being incorporated into the Gregorian calendar now, some are experiencing a change in their zodiac sign. Now, of course, not everyone accepts the 13th sign, saying it's New Age garbage. However, I found that those who have developed their consciousness to a fourth dimensional level all seem to agree that this sign is real and it resonates with them. I honestly feel that I went from a Pisces to an Aquarius, given my spiritual development and what's happened to me, and just the crazy coincidence I've had over the past 2 years in my life.
Okay, so I wonder here, just because I'm sure I have a few listeners who wonder on this, if somebody is actually born under the new sign, during what time would they be born?
Well, you can look up online. If you go to YouTube and you type in CBS and Ophiuchus, it's excuse me, it's a confusing word, excuse me. Ophiuchus. You'll type in CBS Ophiuchus, and you'll see the same program that I saw. And it shows the dates of the new zodiac. And, of course, you can find it online, too. If you just type in 13th zodiac sign, you'll find all kinds of information on it.
Okay.
Okay, wow, time sure is flying, isn't it?
Oh, yes. We're almost at the end of the hour and the end of this week's episode. And on that note of the time, have you any final thoughts or info you would like to share?
Pardon me?
Oh, I said, have you any final thoughts or info you wish to share?
Oh, an introduction?
Information.
Oh, information. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
My sound quality is terrible. Well, yes, I guess I could close up with discussion of the metaphysical aspect of light and sound frequency.
Okay.
Light and sound are both measured on a frequency scale with wavelengths. The visual spectrum of light for the human eye does not cover the entire light spectrum. We are unable to see ultraviolet, infrared, and other wavelengths below or above this spectrum. Thus, there must be that which is in fact dwelling in our reality, but we simply cannot see it. The same can be said of sound. Sound has shape. It emits shape. There are some examples of this online if you search it. And sound can alter mood and thought with relative ease. That's been known for a long time. And in my opinion, what you listen to will, in fact, affect your life's experiences. This again falls in line with the mind control of the music industry and television. It's very simple to control and alter the human senses via holography, sound, or psychic intervention. Many theories of the holographic universe state that we are indeed merely holograms and that all we see is a hologram. Many, of course, will deny this, as their definition of a hologram is akin to something from Star Trek or comic cards. However, a hologram can be just as real as we are, depending on how sophisticated the technology is. And a good example of this holography is Project Bluebeam, which many are familiar with now, where images of saints and deities are projected into the sky, quickly gaining the attention and submission of those with weak minds. And in the past few years, I've seen stories, there have been images of the Buddha, of Shiva, Mary Magdalene seen in the skies over various parts of the globe. One can only imagine what else can be projected, perhaps UFOs or other such phenomena. And another example of this is the Norway spiral, which many are familiar with as well.
Oh, yes, I've heard of it, too. I've followed it when it happened, I believe, a year ago or something like that.
Indeed. And the Norway spiral falls in line with symbolism, of course, and that's the last aspect of metaphysics I'd like to cover today, is symbolism.
Okay.
It plays an important role in metaphysics, of course, as I believe symbolism to be a universal language. You can place thousands of words into one symbol, and it's also very subtle. Unless one has developed consciousness to a certain point, the symbols will have no meaning to them at all. For a good example, let's look at the logo of the United Nations. We have the planet under a grid with olive branches extending around it. Now, this symbol reveals much to the adept eye and mind. Notice almost all branches of leadership and military have olive branches on them. The olive branch is a signal of victory. So what does the UN symbol tell you? Our victory over the world. Notice also that Antarctica is not to be found on the UN symbol. Why? Because Antarctica is a sovereign continent, not ruled by anyone or anything outside of its own borders. And to me, Antarctica is a very intriguing and interesting place. Most project the image of a frozen, barren wasteland only habitable to polar animals. However, I feel there's much more to it than that. Much of the New Age community is led to think that there is an entrance to hollow earth there, and it cannot be denied that when Adolf Hitler visited there, the Nazi scientists returned to Germany with advanced knowledge and technology. You can put the rest of the puzzle together yourself and see that it makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And in closing, another blatant example of symbolism is in Hollywood and television. Subliminals and symbolism are everywhere. Comic books, cartoons, just about everywhere you can find it. Even the flags reveal much. Case in point, the Grand Union flag. Established in 1775, fittingly enough, just before the end of the War of Independence from Britain, the flag tells you all you need to know. It's an American flag with the British flag where the stars and blue are on the American flag. The War for Independence, in my opinion, was a clever ruse set up by the British royals, made to increase patriotism and strengthen morale of the country. And the war did what it established to do. The United States became an independent nation, or at least they thought they did. I honestly believe there was a subversion, and that the United States is a corporation of the British royals, owned and operated by Britain since 1775.
All right. Well, this has certainly been a most interesting hour, and I thank you for coming on this evening and talking with us. It's been a lot of fun. And of course,
yes, I thank you for having me, and again, I hope that I've been able to help people just look for something new, something different. I can honestly say it's changed my life, and I hope it can change theirs as well. And in closing, I'd just like to say that truth is there for those who seek. A closed mind lives a closed life, void of any realization of self.
I really like that quote. But, all right, well, have a good evening.
Again, I thank you for your time, Miss, and I hope that we may have a future interview soon.
Sure. Well, this has been another episode of Infinite Universe, and I will see you again in 2 weeks with a brand new episode at the same time in the same place. Thank you, everyone. Good night, and remember to keep that open mind.